Hey guys, I put this video together to try and help anybody that just recently had a concussion or if you've been living with a brain injury. I'm going to go over a lot of material that can even help anybody alleviate a lot of different types of symptoms. I'm not a doctor, my name is Amy, I'm 30 years old, and I have been living with traumatic brain injury for more than 9 years, and I've survived multiple concussions. So I gathered all my experiences and put them together in this video to try to help you navigate through this journey and see the things that helped me and the things that made my recovery worse. I hope this helps you guys.
You must understand that brain injuries are so challenging because it affects literally every aspect and function of the human body. They're so frustrating to live with because the damage of the brain can't be seen by the naked eye. So most people with brain injuries, they appear normal on the outside, but internally they're on the verge of suicide, overwhelmed, and in need of help. Just so you know what you're in for, here's what we'll be covering. I'm going to try my best to give you guys a condensed version of everything, but there is a lot to cover. If you have any questions on anything else, I will try my best to help lead you in the right direction. Just leave a comment below. Surprisingly, a lot of people suffering from brain injuries don't even remember that they had a concussion that caused it. But here are a few of the symptoms that I am experiencing and have experienced. You might see a few here that you're experiencing as well, and I'm going to address how I got rid of a lot of these symptoms. So prior to 2011, I was really healthy, active, and eager. I was studying at university for a medical degree, and at night I was taking courses to be a certified paramedic on the side. So naturally, when the first concussion happened, we immediately sought out top doctors to try to help me out. In the beginning of my recovery process, I wasn't able to walk, I lost all my strength, I developed a really strong stutter. My pain was so aggressive and explosive that my parents would rush me to the ER multiple nights a week because that's the only way we knew how to tame it. Even the clothes on my skin were painful. My fingers touching together were painful. Hugs were painful. I was having multiple episodes of epilepsy every day. My hair was falling out by the chunks. Eventually, a neurologist put all my symptoms under the broad umbrella that is fibromyalgia. I also was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, pituitary concussion, and hypothyroidism. Another doctor even claimed that I had MS, and that I would continue to deteriorate, be bound to a wheelchair, until I eventually died at a young age. So they loaded me up on prescription drugs for pain, inflammation, and seizures, and a bunch of other things, and that was their solution. That 9-year gap that you see between the concussions was absolutely brutal. It was a roller coaster for my mind and my health. I tried to make up for lost time and fight to be functional, make something of my life, but it was so difficult. Towards the 7th year in, I began to get significantly worse. My entire body was falling apart. And I was so tired of all the side effects that come with prescription drugs and how my life was just centered around illness. So I was determined to just fix all of this. I found a doctor. He did things a little bit more naturally. So we did a blood test, found my liver was shutting down from all the prescription drugs the doctors had me on, and I did a liver treatment, but we did it using natural supplements, and that's when I started to see improvements. But then just a few months ago, a heavy metal canister fell from above me, striking my skull, causing yet another concussion. So I'm back at it all over again for another time, but I'm implementing all the things I've learned along the way and doing it the natural way, which has been helping me recover so fast, unlike the previous recovery attempts using conventional medicine. Don't get me wrong, conventional medicine has a time and a place, and I'm grateful for the rare occasions it's helped. However, it takes wisdom to decipher when to go natural and when to go conventional. Alright, before you go any further, even if you choose to do things naturally, I really urge you to go to the doctor and get everything documented. You gotta do this immediately after the concussion. Not only is it a good idea because you get a better sense of what's going on, but for any legal reasons or if you need to apply for disability later on, you're going to need to provide a substantial amount of proof. Alright, so facts. It's important to know the facts because knowing the facts helped me get a more realistic view of what I'm up against. So, first off, most people don't pay much attention to a concussion if it didn't result in a loss of consciousness. But more than 90% of diagnosed concussions occur without loss of consciousness. And I've actually had more than 2 concussions, and of them all, I never went unconscious, no matter how strong the impact was. The other thing that was so critical is to realize that majority of brain injury survivors suffer from suicidal ideation, and it really must be understood that this is a result of the brain injury. It takes over the brain and consumes it with these dark, involuntary thoughts of needing to kill oneself or run away. With that being said, please be gentle and patient with yourself. Healing does take time. You might have a strong desire to seclude yourself, but try to have at least someone you can call when times get tough. It's so important to avoid any negativity and stress. That even includes people who talk in a very tense and sharp manner. You don't want anything that causes tension in your brain. So learning to think and observe with a positive outlook, it has a direct impact on your recovery. So let's jump into immediate steps. This is what needs to be done immediately after a concussion to prevent further damage. You need to increase oxygen levels in the brain, lower inflammation of the brain, and ensure sleep so you can begin recovering. The way I accomplished that was with reishi mushroom extract. Reishi mushroom advanced my recovery unbelievably. That's the brand I tried. Be sure that any extract that you get is alcohol-free. You want to avoid any alcohol during your recovery. It's so damaging for the brain and the liver. So prior to taking reishi, my brain and brainstem were massively swollen. The pressure was so immense, I could hardly open my eyes. I was constantly in some other distant realm, never able to be present, so detached from the surroundings. The pain it drove me psychotic. But the first time I took reishi, it worked for me almost instantly. The swelling went down and everything changed. I could see better, I could breathe better, the pain went down, my sense of smell returned. Take a look at the other medical mushrooms as well. They are all pretty amazing. What I love about taking natural things is that they help restore multiple systems in the body at once. It's not like prescription pills where they only target masking a certain symptom in the body while creating multiple health issues. Now, to ensure sleep, which is so critical for the recovery process. I grew up in a conservative family, so marijuana was not at all acceptable. However, after proving to my family how marijuana alone could essentially replace almost all of my prescription pills without any side effects, that's when marijuana's benefits became so undeniable. There's different ways to administer it. You should consider having it in different forms to achieve different absorption rates and different effects. For instance, when dealing with seizures, you clearly don't want to take the cannabis in a form that would have an onset in an hour. You'd want something that kicks in a few seconds. However, for ensuring adequate amount of sleep, I used cannabis in the form of RSO, which is a high-potency extraction that I take sublingually. Just a side note, I find it important to respect marijuana just like any other medicine, not to abuse it. It really does boil down to your intent of use. There's way too many people I know that abuse it and they become emotionally dependent on it. And all they're really doing is creating another obstacle for themselves that they'll eventually have to tackle later down the road. Alright, so now that we've addressed the first 3 immediate steps, we can take a look at what I found to be one of the biggest causes of pain and symptoms: inflammation. Most of us have chronic inflammation, but people just kind of grow accustomed to it. There's a lot of inflammation factors, and there could be some inflammation that existed before the concussion that needs to be taken care of. Here are a few things that causes inflammation. So I want to touch up on the last pointer there, processed foods. They are so harmful. Anything that goes through a manufacturing company, avoid it. Your body can't heal itself if you're feeding it chemicals, and that includes protein powders. You can't get any more processed than protein powders, and it's amazing how they made us believe it's good for us. Gluten, it's another thing to avoid. Even if you're not intolerant, it just has this way of ruining the digestive system. And lastly, dairy. I understand it's literally like crack for some people and they can't imagine ever giving it up, but I avoid dairy at all costs. It causes hormonal balance and mucus in your body, and that clearly does not sound beneficial for anyone. In all the years that I saw specialists and doctors, not one of them ever ordered an allergy test in response to my high levels of chronic inflammation. All they did was give me highly toxic anti-inflammatory prescriptions, which is ironic because they cause even more inflammation in the long run. I ended up getting so fed up, I took matters into my own hands, did an allergy test with the lab, and found out I was allergic to the foods the doctors were telling me to eat. So with that said, I wish I did an allergy test sooner in my journey. Eliminating the allergens played a huge role in lowering my inflammation. Like I previously mentioned, toxins are another factor that cause inflammation. When I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, after the first concussion, I was able to overcome it by removing all the toxins in my body. After this last concussion, though, I got to experience by far the most painful and horrific thing in which I hardly ever heard of, EMF sensitivity. It is a very toxic world now, so lots of people are experiencing EMF sensitivity without ever knowing that it's the cause. It's when your body starts to react and show symptoms to the frequencies that are being emitted by any electronic device, transmitter, radio towers, and especially 5G towers. Imagine what happens to the cells of food when you cook it in a microwave. A microwave heats things using frequencies. Food gets hot and boils, the cells vibrate and overheat. That's essentially what's happening to your body as waves of frequencies from all over our environment pass through our body. They cause all sorts of symptoms you would never even imagine of attributing to EMF. That is, until you begin to realize that every time you step away from your gadgets and move a little closer to nature, you suddenly begin to feel better. And that's exactly what happened to me. I thought I was going crazy, so I bought an EMF meter that you see there on the right side. It was $200, but believe me, it was well worth it. I learned so much from this little device, and it made the invisible visible, and it showed me that my room was a highly charged electric field from all my electronic devices. My brain literally felt like it was going to explode. It was already swollen from the concussion, but then anytime I would sit in front of a TV or go near a Wi-Fi router, the swelling would increase to the point that it would induce vomiting and convulsions, not to mention severe irritability and depression. As soon as I removed all these sources causing any sort of frequencies, the swelling went down and I would rest and sleep, whereas before it was causing straight insomnia for nearly half a year. It's so important that your room and your bed are free from all of these. Online they have hoodies and hats and other kind of clothing that is lined with a metal fabric that helps deflect the frequencies from passing through your brain or body, and it does help lessen the pain and the swelling, but I was more focused on finding a way out of this hell. I was not interested in living with these issues. The game changer is when I found that EMF sensitivity can be caused by heavy metal toxicity. The doctors put me on antibiotics for something a few months ago, and immediately after, that's when everything escalated into absolute chaos in my body. Lately, a lot of friends who took a vaccine are now experiencing EMF sensitivity. People can experience it in different ways and severities. It really all depends on how many toxins are in their body, how well their liver is functioning, and other kinds of factors. But what I did to overcome EMF sensitivity was to remove all the toxins in my body. There's so many ways of doing this. I personally used iodine, milk thistle, ACV nano, and a couple of other things. There's dry brush scrubbing, there's lymphatic drainage, which is helpful if your lymph nodes are swollen and sore, and soaking in a hot Epsom salt bath also draws out toxins. I know that there are so many people out there that make fun of the idea that 5G is harmful, but take it from Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibrations. There's so much power and potential in those three things. I really encourage you to do some research for yourself. And while on the subject of frequencies, do research on Rife machines. Not all frequencies are bad. There are harmful ones and there are healing ones. This machine uses frequencies that are healing to the body, helping it restore its function. I personally got to witness it firsthand and what it's capable of, and I've seen it even help people overcome MS. I know it sounds crazy at first, but the science behind it is just fascinating, and the results are truly undeniable. Alright, so now we covered the 3 immediate steps, eliminating any sources of inflammation and EMF radiation, and now we take a look at the gut. If your gut stops working, it's like a domino effect. Everything else in your body is going to struggle. If your stomach doesn't absorb nutrients or function properly, then there's no way for the body to begin healing itself. No sense in taking supplements when your gut doesn't work. I know this is probably going to shock a lot of people, but majority of the time, essentially most people's problem is a parasitic one. If you don't agree, that's totally fine, but I've seen this in almost every single person I've come across. This doesn't only pertain to the topic of concussions, but literally everyone across the board. Everyone has parasites. But the amount varies, the type varies, their immune system strength varies from person to person, so naturally the symptoms also vary. And sadly, almost every time someone does a clinical parasite test, the results say there aren't any parasites. But then when you put their blood sample under a microscope, they are absolutely infected. So my go-to for this is oregano oil. Not only is it amazing at killing parasites, it also kills viruses and bacteria. I keep this on me at all times, especially lately with what's going on in the world. There's other bitter herbs you can add that kill parasites and viruses, like black walnut and cloves and such. I found a huge improvement in my overall health when I did a parasitic cleanse followed by a liver cleanse.
Like I mentioned, everybody has parasites, but the medical field has a habit of mistreating these symptoms and not fixing the root of the problem. Parasites can wreak havoc in the entire body. I even knew a man that became paralyzed because a parasite entered his spinal cord. For a whole year, he sought treatment from conventional doctors, and they never figured it out. Out of desperation, though, he went the natural route, and as soon as he did a parasite cleanse, he was back to walking. It's not going to be the same case for everybody, but I just want to show you the extent of damage that parasites can create and how important it is to remove them in any situation.
Once the gut is restored, then I moved on to supplementing the brain. There's this book that my sister recently found, Concussion Rescue by Dr. Kabranchipek. I really wish I came across this sooner in my brain injury journey because it was really tough trying to figure out all of this information on my own, but this book pretty much hands you a lot of information that you're going to need so you can get on the right path to recovery. Most of us are pretty clueless when it comes to brain injury, so it was helpful in educating myself and my family, helping them to understand more of what I'm going through and how to properly deal with it. Ironically though, it is a book, and one of the symptoms of brain injury is not being able to read, so I did find that funny. However, my mom reads some of it, and I skip to the parts that interest me. Here's a few supplements that they mention in the book, and some others that I found on my own to be helpful. I encourage you to pause the video, read through their extensive benefits, and on the right side there's these 2 complex supplements that I have found to have a combination of the list and their active ingredients, and I'm currently taking those now. Now, for addressing structural issues, this can be done right after the concussion. For the entire 9 years, I have been desperately trying everything and anything to alleviate my pain and be functional. These are the only things I found to be helpful as far as structure, at least in my situation. I've tried injections in my neck under x-ray. Some doctors insisted I need surgery, while others insisted I didn't. I've done therapy, acupuncture, and a bunch of other stuff I don't even remember. I wish I knew about Atlas Profilix much sooner. It's a treatment I did right before my last concussion. It targets the muscles right at the base of the skull, and it applies like a great vibrating pressure on those muscles until they release. It's really crazy that it took nearly 9 years to realize that the muscles in the neck need to be addressed. They are as important as anything else. They are just as damaged from the impact as everything else. And what's the sense of adjusting the discs when the muscles around them are tight and swollen and pulling the discs back out of alignment? So Atlas Profilix treatment, I paid about $300, and I flew to California to get it done. It was totally worth it. And that one payment, it covers an entire year of maintenance sessions if those muscles strain again from impact. The other thing that helped me greatly was finding a good chiropractor that adjusts the cervical area very well. Not someone who carelessly rips through your neck, but a doctor that adjusts with clear intent and knows how to properly adjust your discs without causing more inflammation and damage. Specifically someone who can adjust the Atlas or the C1. So I have laxity of the ligaments in my cervical neck. It's so bad after this last concussion that if I was in a car and someone just jerks the brake, that is enough for my disc to just go totally out of alignment and press into my spinal cord, causing all sorts of problems depending on which disc was out. Sometimes it would be partial paralysis, or my arms and legs would just suddenly stop working, or I would lose partial vision. Sometimes even convulsions would start. Literally anything was possible. Those symptoms, they got less severe when I was able to control the inflammation. Eating bone broth soup and taking colostrum every morning and in the night helped me severely in so many ways. They helped a lot in strengthening my ligaments. These are really 2 powerful things, and they work wonders for your body. I cannot speak highly enough about them. You can see the variety of benefits that the bone broth and the colostrum help with. It's not just structural benefits, it's literally beneficial for everything in your body, and I highly recommend them. Another thing that helped me was red light therapy. However, if you're EMF sensitive, I would avoid this. But when I wasn't EMF sensitive, the red light helped give me so much needed relief. I bought one off of eBay that looks similar to the white one on the left, and I had it pointed to the top of my head, and it helped calm my brain down enough to where I was able to sleep. I used this in the first few months after my concussion when I was bedridden. Alright, so moving on to social challenges. This has been a really difficult aspect of brain injuries. This most recent concussion resulted in a severe personality change, and let me tell you, it was terrifying. It's like you wake up one morning and a stranger has taken over your mind and your body, and it makes all the decisions carelessly without you having a say in anything. Luckily for me, that we're off after roughly 4 months, but absolutely I am still not the same person I was prior to the concussion. There's also excessive anxiety and depression, and not to mention explosive bouts of feeling overwhelmed by the simplest of tasks, which makes it nearly impossible to accomplish anything. Throughout my journey, I've also watched a lot of people who I thought were permanent fixtures in my life just leave. And as much as that is painful, it's really important to understand that not everyone can cope with brain injuries or even begin to understand what it's like. But if you do find someone that's willing to make an effort to stick around and understand, it is well worth it. However, a large reason of why I think a lot of us with brain injuries have a strong desire to be secluded is because there's so much turmoil going on within us and so many triggers around us that we just conclude that no one will understand nor make the effort to avoid all those triggers. So instead, it's just easier to be alone in our own little world where it's safer and it won't cause us any additional pain. It's like there's this constant struggle of wanting to be social and have friends versus not being able to mentally handle all the factors and stimuli that comes with social settings. There's also another danger of when the people around you are too positive that they make light of your situation to try to help you overcome it. You know that whole saying, if we don't make it a big deal, then it won't be a big deal kind of thing? But I found that to be damaging for a lot of people with brain injuries, including myself. What we're going through is so overwhelming and involuntary that we need help. When someone essentially neglects them of help and says something to make light of the situation, it's actually driving that person further into hopelessness because there's yet another person who can't help them. And along my journey, I found a lot of people who didn't even know how to begin to help me. I felt alone. I was almost always the only one there to pick myself up from the floor after I was ripped to shreds by an episode of torture. I learned that you are your only advocate. You know your body better than anyone else. You're the one who's living in it, experiencing it. I learned that you need to be in tune with your body to understand its signals and how to properly respond to it in a way that produces results. Everything in society today makes us so detached from ourselves and so dependent. You live in this body. Just like most people who own a car should know the basics of how to fix it and maintain it, the same goes for the body, but even more so. I mean, come on, we're so blessed to have information accessible to us. I know that I wouldn't have seen all these results if I didn't take matters into my own hands. So I encourage you to do your research, be your own advocate, question things, and listen to your body. Dealing with everything that comes with a brain injury, it's really too much to carry on one's own. But luckily for me, this journey has really brought me to know Christ, and He is literally the reason I am still alive till this day. Being in tune with Him has helped me along my path of recovery, and to be honest, I don't know how I would have survived this many years without Him. In the beginning, I mentioned a few facts that stressed how suicidal thoughts come with the territory of brain injury. So I just want to go over a couple supplements that helped me cope and tame the depression. It turns out a lot of people that are on antidepressants and are suffering from depression are actually just low in magnesium. Also, look at all the symptoms that low magnesium can cause. There are many types of magnesium with different functions. I personally take a full spectrum magnesium supplement to address everything, and I circled magnesium glycinate because it helps with depression, and I circled magnesium threonate because it's great for brain recovery, so keep those in mind. Other things that helped me tremendously for depression are albizia, dopamucana, and marijuana. And then down below, I listed a couple coping tips that might seem obvious at first, but understand it's hard to help ourselves sometimes, so I have it written down here just in case. Verbalize what you're feeling. There's no point in trying to pretend you're fine or strong. Brain injuries are brutal, so don't hesitate to ask for help. No one can see the interior chaotic torture that's exploding within you. Do what you need to do in order to get better, no matter if the others around you don't understand, and the chances are they won't. but you gotta do what you need to do to stay alive. Also, keep sunglasses and earplugs with you at all times to handle your surroundings. And try to do any practices that encourage positive thinking, especially trying to achieve that positive mindset in the midst of pain. When anyone leaves, try to understand that people around you are also confused on the changes that are happening with you. Some people will leave. Not everyone knows how to handle these changes. Try to channel any of those emotions into encouraging your recovery. And always remind yourself to be patient. I'm like an adrenaline junkie, or I was, and it's been so difficult for me just to watch time pass by, one uneventful day after the next, without being able to live it up to the max like I want to. It's important to learn how to find joy and beauty in the simple things. Healing takes time and patience. But honestly, this time of nothingness has a lot of potential. I try to use my time to train myself to live in the present moment. You just gotta find silver linings and make the most of it. If you approach this journey with that kind of mindset, I promise you it's gonna make you a stronger person. I really hope something in here helps somebody. Just please don't give up. I promise you things are gonna get better. Best of luck, guys. Take care.